On November 12, 2023, at exactly 6:47 p.m., my daughter-in-law Bethany looked me dead in the eye across my own dining table and said, "You're not even half the woman my mother is." I'm Dorothy Williams. I'm 68 years old. And I pushed my chair back, smiled, and said just 4 words. Then she can pay. My name is Dorothy Mae Williams, and that night changed everything. For 7 months, I had been secretly paying $850 every single month for the apartment where my son James and his wife Bethany lived at Peachtree Towers, Unit 412. I believed it was temporary. I believed I was helping my only child through hard times. I never imagined that while I was skipping my arthritis medication and selling my late husband's wedding ring to make those payments, they saw me as nothing more than a burden, an inconvenience, someone beneath them. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. It had all started 7 months earlier, on a rainy Tuesday in April. James showed up at my door at 9 p.m., his eyes red and swollen, his shoulders shaking. He's 40 years old, my baby boy, and seeing him cry still breaks something inside me that never quite heals. "Mama," he'd said, his voice cracking like it did when he was 12 and fell off his bicycle. "Mama, I lost my job. They laid off half the department. We don't have money for rent. The landlord wants $850 by Friday or we're out on the street." I didn't hesitate. Not for 1 second. That's what mothers do, isn't it? We catch our children when they fall, no matter how old they get, no matter how far they have to fall. I took him into my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd bandaged his scraped knees and helped him with homework and taught him how to make his father's favorite peach cobbler. I made him sweet tea the way he liked it, with 3 teaspoons of sugar and a squeeze of lemon. And I listened. "It's just temporary, Mama," he promised, gripping his glass so tight I thought it might shatter. "Just until I find something new, maybe 3 months tops. I've got interviews lined up. I just need a little time." "How much do you need?" I asked, even though I'd already decided to give him whatever he asked for. "Just the rent, $850. I'll pay you back as soon as I get my first paycheck." I went to my bedroom and opened my dresser drawer, the one where I kept my emergency cash in an old Maxwell House coffee tin. I counted out $850 in 20s and 50s, money I'd been saving from my Social Security checks, putting aside $50 here, $75 there for the past 2 years. When I came back, James was crying again. "Mama, you're saving me. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You don't have to do anything without me," I told him, pressing the money into his hands. "That's what I'm here for." Then he asked me something that should have been my first warning sign. "Mama, can we keep this between us? I don't want Bethany to feel bad about taking money from you. You know how proud she is." I nodded. I understood pride. I'd lived with it my whole life. The pride of a black woman who'd worked as a seamstress for 40 years, who'd raised a son on her own after my husband Thomas died of a heart attack when James was just 15. Pride was something I knew intimately. What I didn't know then, what I was too naive, too trusting, too much of a mother to see, was that it wasn't Bethany's pride James was protecting. It was his own image as a provider, as a man who could take care of his family without running to his elderly mother. May came, then June, then July, August, September, and October. 7 months of $850 payments, automatically debited from my checking account on the 5th of every month. 7 months of believing James was looking for work, that any day now he'd call and say, "Mama, I got a job. I can pay you back." Instead, what I got were excuses. "The job market's tough right now, Mama. They want someone younger. I'm waiting to hear back from a really promising interview." And all the while, I watched them live like nothing had changed. I watched Bethany post pictures on Facebook from restaurants I couldn't afford to eat at. I saw the shopping bags from Lenox Square Mall when they visited, Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, Michael Kors. I noticed Bethany's new Cartier watch, the one that probably cost more than 3 months of their rent. But I didn't say anything, because that's what mothers do. We trust, we believe, we sacrifice in silence. Until November 12th. I'd spent all day preparing for that Sunday dinner. I woke up at 6 a.m. and started on the menu I'd planned for weeks. This wasn't just any dinner. It was supposed to be special, a celebration. James had texted me 3 days earlier. "Mama, we have some good news to share. Can we come for Sunday dinner?" Good news. Finally, I thought. Finally, he'd found a job. Finally, I could stop choosing between my medication and their rent. I made everything from scratch. Southern fried chicken with my grandmother's secret buttermilk marinade. Macaroni and cheese, the real kind with 3 types of cheese and a golden crispy top. Collard greens simmered for hours with smoked turkey necks. Cornbread made in my mother's cast-iron skillet. Candied yams with pecans and marshmallows. And for dessert, my famous sweet potato pie with fresh whipped cream. The house smelled like Sunday after church, like family, like home. I set the dining table with my grandmother's lace tablecloth, the white one with tiny roses embroidered around the edges. I used my good china, the set with the blue flowers that my mother-in-law gave me as a wedding present 45 years ago. I polished the silverware until it gleamed. I put out cloth napkins and lit vanilla-scented candles in my grandmother's crystal holders. Everything had to be perfect. This was a celebration, after all. They arrived at 6:30 p.m., 30 minutes late, but I didn't mind. I was too excited about their good news to care about punctuality. Bethany stepped out of their car wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, a bright red Chanel number that hugged her slim figure perfectly. Her blonde hair was styled in those beach waves that always look effortless, but I knew cost $200 at the salon. Her shoes were Christian Louboutin. I recognized the red soles. Her bag was a cream-colored Michael Kors tote. Her nails were perfectly manicured, a soft pink that matched her lipstick. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Beautiful, put together, expensive. I looked down at my own dress, a simple purple cotton dress I'd sewn myself 10 years ago. My shoes were comfortable flats from Payless, worn at the heels. My hands showed every one of my 68 years, the knuckles swollen from arthritis, the skin marked with age spots and scars from decades of pushing needles through fabric. "Dorothy," Bethany said, kissing the air near my cheek without actually touching me. She never called me Mom or Mama, always Dorothy. "Something smells interesting. Not good. Interesting." James hugged me, but it was brief, distracted. His phone was already in his hand, his thumb scrolling through something that was apparently more important than looking his mother in the eye. "Hey, Mama," he said absently. "Sorry we're late. Traffic was crazy." They weren't coming from far away. They lived 15 minutes from me. There was no traffic on a Sunday evening, but I smiled and ushered them inside. "Come on in, babies. Dinner's ready. I made all your favorites, James." We sat down at the table, and immediately I knew something was wrong. The air felt thick, heavy, like the humidity before a summer storm. Bethany kept checking her phone, her perfectly shaped eyebrows drawn together in annoyance. James wouldn't meet my eyes, his gaze darting everywhere except toward me. "Let's say grace," I suggested, reaching for their hands. Bethany pulled her hand back like I'd tried to burn her. "We don't really do that anymore, Dorothy. We're more spiritual than religious now." Spiritual than religious. My son, who I'd raised in Mount Zion Baptist Church, who I'd dressed in his Sunday best every week for 18 years, who'd been baptized in that church, sang in the youth choir, served as an usher. But I bowed my head alone and thanked God for the food, for my family, for the blessings we were about to share. During dinner, every bite felt like swallowing stones. Bethany picked at her food like a bird, pushing the macaroni and cheese around her plate. "Dorothy, don't you think this is a bit heavy?" I'm trying to watch my figure. My mother always serves lighter fare. Grilled fish, quinoa, organic vegetables. "It's traditional Sunday soul food," I said gently. "James used to love these meals when he was growing up." "Well, James is 40 now, not 14. People's tastes evolve." She said evolve, like it meant improve. Like my cooking was something to grow beyond, something primitive and unsophisticated. I watched James shovel food into his mouth, not defending me, not defending the meals that had sustained him through childhood, through college, through every hard time in his life. "So," I said, trying to change the subject, trying to salvage something from this disaster of a dinner. "You said you had good news to share?" James and Bethany exchanged a look. She nodded slightly and he cleared his throat. "Well, Mama, we've been thinking about our future, about what we want our lives to look like." My heart lifted. This was it. The job news. Finally. "Bethany and I have decided we want to buy a house. A real house, not an apartment. Something in Buckhead, near her parents. Something with good schools for when we have kids." I smiled even though a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a question. "How?" How were they buying a house when I was paying their rent? That's wonderful, baby. I'm so happy for you. There's more, Bethany said, setting down her fork with a delicate clink. We've found the perfect place. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a huge kitchen, a backyard. It's $650,000. The number hit me like a fist to the stomach. $650,000. I was eating rice and eggs for dinner most nights so they could have a roof over their heads, and they were shopping for $650,000 houses. That's a lot of money, I managed to say. My parents are helping with the down payment, Bethany said, a note of pride in her voice. They're giving us $130,000. Can you imagine? That's the kind of parents who actually support their children's success. The jab was subtle, but unmistakable. Parents who actually support their children's success. As if I hadn't supported James every day of his life. As if I wasn't supporting him right now, bleeding my savings dry to keep a roof over his head. That's very generous of them, I said carefully. It is, Bethany agreed. She leaned back in her chair, studying me with those ice-blue eyes. You know, Dorothy, I have to be honest with you about something. My stomach clenched. Here it comes, I thought. The thank you, the acknowledgement. James must have told her about the rent. She's going to apologize for all the shopping, all the restaurants, all the expensive things while I was sacrificing. I've been thinking about this for a while, Bethany continued, her voice taking on that tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable, caring, when she was really about to say something cruel. And I think it's time we address something that's been bothering me. I waited, my hands folded in my lap, the sweet potato pie I'd been so proud of sitting untouched in the center of the table. You're not even half the woman my mother is. The words fell into the room like a bomb, detonating in the silence, destroying everything. I sat perfectly still, my heart suddenly pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Around me, the candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls of the home I'd lived in for 40 years. Bethany didn't stop. My mother is a successful dermatologist with her own practice. She drives a Mercedes S-Class. She has a beach house in Hilton Head. She's traveled to 47 countries. She's sophisticated, educated, independent. She built something with her life. Each word was a knife, carefully placed, deliberately cutting. You? Bethany's lip curled slightly. You spent your whole life sewing other people's clothes, hunched over a machine in a little shop, making minimum wage, hemming pants and taking in dresses. You never built anything. You never became anything. You just existed. She looked around my dining room with visible disgust. And this house. Dorothy, it's stuck in 1985. The wallpaper, the furniture, the decorations. My mother's house looks like something out of Architectural Digest. Modern, clean, minimalist. This looks like a museum of poverty. James shifted in his seat but said nothing. Not one word in my defense. He stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. His jaw working, but his mouth stayed shut. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up past midnight, sewing by lamplight, finishing wedding dresses and prom gowns and christening outfits so I could afford to send James to Morehouse College. I thought about the second job I'd taken as a housekeeper at the Ritz-Carlton, cleaning toilets and making beds, so James could have spending money and not feel poor compared to his classmates. I thought about selling my mother's jewelry, my few precious things, so James could study abroad his junior year. I had sacrificed everything. Everything. And this was what I got in return. This cold assessment of my worth. This dismissal of my entire life. I see, I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Bethany leaned forward, her elbows on my grandmother's tablecloth. Don't take this the wrong way, Dorothy. I'm just being honest. James deserves better than to be tied down by this. She waved her hand vaguely, encompassing me, my home, my life. We're trying to move forward, to build something, and frankly, your presence in our lives feels like dead weight. Dead weight. 40 years of loving my son, raising him, sacrificing for him, reduced to 2 words, dead weight. Something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted. Like a foundation settling, finding solid ground after years of shakiness. I pushed my chair back slowly, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor with a sound like a closing door. I stood up, my full 5'3" frame, my 68-year-old body with its aching joints and tired bones. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It wasn't a hurt smile. It was a smile that my grandmother used to give people right before she put them in their place with such precision they didn't even realize they'd been cut until later. "Well, Bethany," I said, my voice calm, steady, clear. "If your mother is such a superior woman, so successful, so generous, so much better than me, then I think it's time she started acting like it." Bethany blinked, confused. "What?" "I think," I continued, "that it's time your wonderful, accomplished mother took on the responsibilities that such a successful woman should handle." James's head snapped up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time all evening. I saw the fear there, the sudden realization that something was about to happen, something he couldn't control. "Mama," he said, his voice warning. Don't what, James?" I cut him off. "Don't tell the truth? Don't stop pretending? Don't stop being the dead weight that's holding you back?" I turned my attention back to Bethany, who was looking at me like I'd grown a second head. "Let me ask you something, sweetheart. When you and James signed the lease for your apartment at Peachtree Towers, Unit 412, on April 15th of this year, how exactly did you think that rent was getting paid?" The color drained from Bethany's face like someone had pulled a plug. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. "I'm talking about $850 a month. Every month, for 7 months. That's $5,950 total, in case you're wondering. Automatically debited from my checking account at SunTrust Bank on the 5th of every month." James shot to his feet so fast his chair fell backward with a crash that made us both jump. "Mama, what are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth, baby. Something I should have done a long time ago." "What rent?" Bethany shrieked, her carefully cultivated composure shattering like dropped crystal. "What the hell is she talking about, James?" James's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. His face had gone gray, the color of old concrete. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Mama, you said you wouldn't." "I said a lot of things," I interrupted. "I said I'd help you. I said I'd keep your secret. I said I'd give you time, and I did. 7 months of time. 7 months of sacrifices you knew nothing about, Bethany, because your husband lied to you." I walked to the sideboard where I'd set my purse and pulled out a folder. My hands were steady. Inside was every bank statement from the past 7 months, every debit marked clearly. Peachtree Towers, $850. I laid them on the table, one by one, like a dealer laying out cards in a poker game where I held all the aces. April 5th, $850. May 5th, $850. June 5th, $850. July 5th, $850. August 5th, $850. September 5th, $850. October 5th, $850. Bethany stared at the statements like they were written in a foreign language. But James said, he told me his severance package was covering everything. He said we were fine. He said we didn't need help from anyone." "He lied," I said simply. "He came to me crying in April, told me he'd lost his job, begged me for help, and I gave it to him. Because that's what mothers do. That's what dead weight does, apparently. We carry the people we love, even when they don't appreciate it. Even when they don't deserve it." James collapsed back into his chair, his head in his hands. "Mama, I'm sorry. I was going to tell you both. I was waiting for the right time." "The right time?" Bethany's voice could have shattered windows. She turned on him with fury I'd never seen from her before. "You've been lying to me for 7 months? While I've been spending money on clothes and dinners and... Oh my God, James, I just put a $3,000 deposit on that house." I let them fight. I let the truth wash over them like a cleansing flood, exposing all the rot beneath their perfect surface. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. I felt free. The screaming match between James and Bethany lasted another 20 minutes. I stood there, watching it unfold like I was observing someone else's life, someone else's family falling apart in my dining room. "How could you lie to me?" Bethany kept shrieking, her perfect composure completely shattered. "I trusted you." "You?" James shot back, finding his voice finally. "You're the one who's been spending money like water. $650 shoes. Spa weekends in Savannah. That watch cost $4,800, Bethany. Because I thought we had money. You told me you got a promotion." I let them destroy each other with words. And when they finally ran out of steam, when they both turned to look at me, James with pleading eyes, Bethany with something like fear, I said the words I should have said 7 months ago. "Get out of my house." "Mama," James started. "Get out." They left. Bethany was crying, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. James tried to hug me at the door, but I stepped back, and the hurt on his face almost made me reconsider. Almost. "Mama, please, let's talk about this tomorrow when everyone's calmed down." "There's nothing to talk about, James. I'm done. The next rent payment that was scheduled for December 5th? It won't be there. You have 30 days. Figure it out." I closed the door on my son for the first time in his life. And then I sat down on my couch and cried for 3 hours straight. But when I woke up the next morning, Monday, November 13th, I didn't cry anymore. Instead, I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and I started thinking. Really thinking. 7 months. James had told me he lost his job 7 months ago. He'd promised me it was temporary, that he was looking for work, that he just needed a little help to get back on his feet. But now I remembered things. Small things. Details that hadn't made sense at the time but suddenly fell into place like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. Week 1 Monday morning, I sat down with a notebook, one of those black and white composition books from the dollar store, and I started writing down everything I could remember from the past 7 months. April 18th, 3 days after James asked for help, I'd stopped by their apartment unannounced to drop off some leftovers. James wasn't home, but Bethany had mentioned he was at a team meeting. If he'd lost his job on April 15th, why would he have a team meeting on April 18th? May 22nd, James posted on Facebook about a great lunch with the team. He'd tagged himself at the Sundial restaurant. Lunch there costs $50 to $75 per person minimum. June 10th, Bethany posted photos from a weekend in Savannah. The caption read, "James surprised me with a spontaneous getaway. Best husband ever. The hotel they stayed at, the mansion on Forsyth Park, costs $400 a night minimum. July 4th, family cookout at my house. James had shown up in a new polo shirt, Ralph Lauren, tag still on it. When I asked, he said it was a gift from a client. What client? He'd told me he'd been laid off. August 15th, I'd called James at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. He answered out of breath and said he was just finishing up at the gym. The gym, in the middle of the day, when he should have been job hunting. September 20th, Bethany's birthday. They'd gone to Bacchanalia, one of the most expensive restaurants in Atlanta. The tasting menu is $125 per person, not including wine. I knew because I'd looked it up once, dreaming of celebrating my 70th birthday there if I saved enough. October 28th. I'd offered to take them grocery shopping at Costco, my treat. James had said, "Thanks, Mama, but we're good. Bethany likes to shop at Whole Foods." Whole Foods, while I was paying their rent. I filled 12 pages in that notebook by Monday evening. 12 pages of memories, of details, of small lies that had seemed like nothing at the time but now formed a picture I couldn't ignore. Tuesday morning, November 14th, I did something I'd never done before. I went to their apartment. I still had a key. James had given me one for emergencies when they first moved in. I'd never used it. The thought of invading my son's privacy had always felt wrong. But this was an emergency of a different kind. I waited until 10 a.m. when I knew they'd both be out. James's car, a 2022 Honda Accord, which I now realized he'd gotten despite being unemployed, was gone from the parking lot. So was Bethany's Lexus. My hands shook as I unlocked their door. The apartment was exactly what I expected. Expensive, tasteful, perfect. A cream-colored couch that probably cost $3,000. A 65-inch flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. Fresh flowers in a crystal vase on the dining table. Everything looked like a page from a Pottery Barn catalog. I went straight to James's home office. His desk was neat, organized. Too organized, like he was hiding something. I started with the drawers. The first two had normal things. Pens, notepads, charging cables, old birthday cards. The third drawer was locked. I'm not proud of what I did next. I took a bobby pin from my hair and picked the lock. My grandmother had taught me how when I was 12, saying, "Dorothy May, you never know when you might need to get into something that's been locked against you." The drawer opened. Inside were bank statements. Lots of them. All from an account at Wells Fargo that I didn't know James had. I pulled them out with trembling hands and spread them across his desk. And that's when I found the first real number. $43,287.00. That was the balance in the Wells Fargo account as of October 31st, 2023. I stared at that number until my eyes burned. $43,287. My son, who had come to me crying, begging for help with rent, making me choose between my medication and his apartment, had $43,287 in a secret bank account. But it got worse. I looked at the transaction history, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. Monthly deposits, $6,500. Every month, like clockwork. I checked the dates. April 28th, $6,500. May 28th, $6,500. June 28th, $6,500. All the way through October 28th, $6,500. 7 months of $6,500 deposits. That was $45,500 total. The description on each deposit said the same thing. Clark Enterprises, salary. Clark, Bethany's maiden name. James had been working for Bethany's father's company this entire time. I sat down in his desk chair before my legs gave out. The room spun around me. Everything I thought I knew crumbled like a sandcastle hit by a wave. He hadn't lost his job. He'd never lost his job. This had all been a lie. A calculated, deliberate, cruel lie. But why? If he had $6,500 a month coming in, why did he need my $850? I kept looking through the statements, and then I found it. Monthly automatic payments. $2,800 to Mercedes-Benz Financial Services. I looked up sharply. They didn't have a Mercedes. I'd seen James's Honda. I'd seen Bethany's Lexus, but that was a 2019 model, probably paid off. I pulled out my phone and called the Mercedes-Benz dealership in Buckhead. "Hi, I'm calling to confirm a delivery address for a vehicle purchased by James Williams," I said, using my sweetest old lady voice. "I want to make sure his birthday surprise gets to the right place." The salesman was happy to help. "Oh yes, Mr. Williams, the 2023 G-Class SUV. Beautiful vehicle. That's being delivered to..." He rattled off an address I didn't recognize. "Is that still correct?" "Yes, perfect, thank you." A G-Class Mercedes. I looked it up on my phone. Starting price, $139,900. I felt sick. I kept digging. There were credit card statements mixed in with the bank statements. I pulled them out. American Express. Balance $18,760. Transactions from Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Tiffany & Company, the St. Regis Atlanta. Multiple restaurants I couldn't afford to even walk past. Visa. Balance $12,430. More clothing stores, more restaurants. A $3,800 charge to a jewelry store in Lenox Square Mall. MasterCard. Balance $8,900. Spa treatments, golf club membership, wine deliveries. Total credit card debt, $40,090. I sat there doing the math in my head. Income $6,500 per month equals $78,000 per year. My rent help, $850 per month equals $10,200 per year. Total $88,200 per year. Expenses. I could see just from these statements. Mercedes payment, $2,800 per month equals $33,600 per year. Apartment rent, $850 per month equals $10,200 per year, which I was paying. Credit card debt, $40,090. Savings account, $43,287. The numbers didn't add up. Where was the rest of the money coming from? I photographed everything, every statement, every transaction, every number. My phone storage filled up, so I deleted old photos, pictures of flowers, of sunsets, of things that didn't matter, and kept photographing. By the time I left the apartment at 2 p.m., I had 347 photographs of documents, and I had more questions than answers. Week 2 Monday morning, I drove to SunTrust Bank, my bank, where I'd had an account for 35 years. Mrs. Williams, my banker, a kind woman named Patricia, who'd helped me set up my automatic payments to James, greeted me warmly. "How can I help you today?" "Patricia, I need to see all my account activity for the past year." She printed it out. 16 pages of transactions. I sat in the bank lobby and went through every line. And that's when I found them. Starting in February, 2 months before James claimed to have lost his job, there were additional withdrawals I didn't remember making. February 8th, $1,500. ATM withdrawal, February 22nd, $2,000. ATM withdrawal, March 15th, $1,800. ATM withdrawal, March 29th, $2,200. ATM withdrawal, 4 withdrawals totaling $7,500 in 2 months. Before April, before James asked for help with rent. I never withdrew that much cash. My Social Security was $1,847 a month. I lived on that carefully, budgeting every dollar. Patricia, I said, my voice shaking, these withdrawals in February and March, do you have security footage from those ATM transactions? Her face fell. She knew. Somehow she knew what I was about to discover. Mrs. Williams, let me check something. She disappeared into a back office and came back 15 minutes later with a manager, a middle-aged black man named Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Williams, he said gently, I'm going to show you something, but I need you to prepare yourself. He led me to a private office and pulled up security footage on his computer. February 8th, 1:47 p.m. A man approaches the ATM. He's wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, but I'd know that walk anywhere. That's my son, my James. He uses a card, my card, and withdraws $1,500. How? I whispered. How does he have my card? Mr. Johnson's voice was heavy with sympathy. Mrs. Williams, this is your card, but 3 months ago someone called in, claiming to be you, and requested an additional card on your account. Said you kept losing yours and wanted a backup. I never requested that. I know, we've had several elderly customers targeted by family members this way. It's called elder financial abuse, and it's more common than people realize. I watched the footage from all 4 dates. Every time it was James, my son, stealing from me, from his own mother. The room tilted. Mr. Johnson grabbed my arm, helped me sit down, brought me water. Mrs. Williams, you can file a police report. This is theft. This is fraud. He's my son, I heard myself say. I know, and I'm sorry, but he stole $7,500 from you, plus the rent payments you mentioned making. That's over $13,000 total in less than a year. $13,000. The number echoed in my head. I'd sold my husband's wedding ring for $1,200. I'd stopped taking my arthritis medication to save $180 a month. I'd been eating rice and eggs for dinner to save money on groceries. And my son had stolen $13,000 from me. No, not just stolen. He'd planned it. Called the bank. Requested a card. Used it multiple times. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't desperation. This was calculated. Deliberate. Cruel. Tuesday, November 21st, I met with a lawyer. Her name was Michelle Carter, and she came highly recommended by Pastor Thompson from my church. She was a younger black woman, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I showed her everything. The bank statements from James's secret account, the credit card bills, my own bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals, the photographs of everything I'd found. She spent 2 hours going through it all, taking notes, asking questions. Finally, she sat back and looked at me with something like sadness. Mrs. Williams, do you know what your son's net worth is right now? No. She pulled out a calculator and started adding. $43,287 in savings, minus $40,090 in credit card debt, plus the equity in that Mercedes, which, assuming he put down $30,000, gives him about $45,000 in vehicle equity, plus whatever equity he has in other assets. She looked up. Conservative estimate? Your son is worth approximately $78,000. But he told me he was broke. He told me he lost his job. He lied, and the unauthorized withdrawals from your account constitute theft. The false pretenses under which he obtained money from you could constitute fraud. If you wanted to press charges, I don't want to press charges. He's my son. Michelle nodded. I understand, but there are other options. You could file a civil suit to recover your money. You could file for a restraining order. You could— What I want, I interrupted, is to understand why. Why did he do this? If he had money, if he was working, why lie? Why steal from his own mother? That, Michelle said softly, is a question only he can answer. But Mrs. Williams, I need you to understand something. This pattern of behavior, lying, stealing, manipulating, This didn't start 7 months ago. Based on what you've told me, this has been going on longer. What do you mean? The Mercedes was purchased in January 9 months ago. The credit card debt goes back over a year. The job at Clark Enterprises, he's been working there for at least 10 months, based on the deposit dates. My head spun. So he's been lying to me for almost a year? At least. Maybe longer. I went home and threw up. Week 3 Wednesday was Thanksgiving. I spent it alone, which I'd never done in my entire life. Pastor Thompson invited me to the church dinner, but I couldn't face people. Couldn't face their questions, their pity. James called 17 times. I didn't answer. Bethany called twice. I didn't answer those either. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my notebook and my photographs, and I kept investigating, because Michelle had planted a seed in my mind. This has been going on longer. How much longer? I went through my bank statements for the entire past year, and I found more unauthorized withdrawals, going all the way back to January 2023. January through December 2023. Total unauthorized ATM withdrawals, $23,400. My son had stolen nearly $25,000 from me over the course of a year, but there was more. Had to be more. Friday, November 24th, I did something that shames me to this day. I drove to Bethany's parents' house in Buckhead. I'd only met them once, at James and Bethany's wedding 5 years ago. Dr. Richard Clark and his wife Patricia were old money Atlanta, the kind of people who summered on Martha's Vineyard and had portraits painted instead of photographs taken. Their house was a mansion, truly. A white colonial with columns, sitting on 2 acres of perfectly manicured lawn. I parked across the street and called the number Michelle had helped me find. Dr. Clark's office number. Dr. Clark's office, how may I help you? Yes, I'm calling to verify employment for James Williams. He's listed Dr. Clark's company, Clark Enterprises, as his employer on a rental application. One moment, please. She came back on the line. Yes, mister. Williams has been employed with Clark Enterprises since January 2022. January 2022. Not 10 months, not a year. 23 months, almost 2 years. And what is his current position? He's a regional sales manager. His current salary is $78,000 annually, plus commission. $78,000 base salary, plus commission. I thanked her and hung up. James had been lying to me for almost 2 years. Not 7 months. Not 1 year. 2 years. How much money had he taken from me in that time? I went back through all my bank records, going back to January 2022. The unauthorized withdrawals started in March 2022. They happened every month, sometimes twice a month. Amounts ranging from $800 to $2,500. I added it up 3 times because I couldn't believe the number. Total stolen from March 2022 through November 2023, $47,830. My entire life savings had been $52,000 before this started. My son had stolen almost everything I had. I sat in my car across from that mansion where Bethany's parents lived, where James now worked, where he'd probably been having family dinners and playing golf and living a whole secret life. And I cried. Not gentle tears. Violent, body-shaking sobs that left me gasping for air. Sunday, December 3rd, I went to church for the first time since the dinner. I sat in the back pew, hoping to be invisible. Pastor Thompson found me anyway. "Sister Dorothy," he said, sitting beside me. "I've been worried about you." "I'm fine, Pastor." "You're not fine. Talk to me." So I did. I told him everything. And when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Dorothy, can I tell you something my grandmother used to say?" "Yes, sir." She said, "Baby, sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you take a bullet for, and that's why it hurts so bad. Because you would, and they know it, and they use it." I started crying again. "What do I do, Pastor? He's my son, my only child. You love him, but you don't let him destroy you. There's a difference between helping someone and letting them bleed you dry. I don't know if I can face him. I don't know if I can hear his excuses." "Then don't. Not yet. Not until you're ready. But Dorothy, you need to protect yourself. Legally, financially, emotionally." I nodded. That night, December 3rd, I called Michelle Carter. "I want to file a civil suit. I want to recover my money. And I want to do it in a way that makes it impossible for him to lie his way out of it." "Okay," she said. Then here's what we're going to do. Week 4, Michelle Carter had a plan, and it was brilliant. We're not going to call him, she explained over coffee at her office on Monday morning. We're not going to give him a chance to prepare, to rehearse his excuses, to get his story straight with Bethany. Then what are we going to do? She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a woman who'd seen too many elderly clients victimized by their own children. We're going to invite them to a family meeting, at my office. You're going to tell them it's about estate planning, that you want to discuss your will, make sure everything is in order, maybe set up a trust for future grandchildren. He'll never believe I have enough money for that. Oh, but you do, Dorothy. That's what he doesn't know. I stared at her. What are you talking about? Michelle pulled out another folder. This one had my name on it, but I'd never seen it before. When your husband Thomas passed away 15 years ago, he had a life insurance policy through his job at the post office. Do you remember that? Yes, it was $50,000. I put it in savings. You put it in a high-yield savings account that you haven't touched in 15 years. Dorothy, with compound interest, that account is now worth $78,450. You also have a small pension from your years as a seamstress with the union shop, $847 a month for life. Your house is fully paid off and worth approximately $285,000 in the current market. Your Social Security is $1,847 a month. She looked up at me. Dorothy, your total net worth is approximately $363,000. You're not rich, but you're far from poor. I sat back in my chair, stunned. I'd been living like I was destitute, eating rice and eggs, skipping medication, selling my jewelry. And all along, I'd had over $360,000? Why didn't I know this? Because you never checked. You lived modestly. You never spent the insurance money. You paid off your house years ago. You've been so focused on taking care of James that you never took care of yourself. The truth of that hit me like a punch. So here's what we're going to do, Michelle continued. We're going to invite James and Bethany here on Friday, December 8th at 2 p.m. We're going to tell them it's about estate planning, and then we're going to present them with every single piece of evidence we've gathered. And then what? And then you're going to give them exactly 72 hours to return every penny they stole from you. If they don't, we file criminal charges for elder financial abuse, fraud, and theft. Friday, James and Bethany arrived exactly on time. I was already in Michelle's conference room, sitting at the head of a long mahogany table. Michelle sat to my right, a stack of folders in front of her. James looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his face was drawn, and he'd lost weight. Bethany looked furious, her jaw tight, her arms crossed. Mama, James started, moving toward me. Sit down, please, Michelle said, her voice professional and cool. We have a lot to discuss. They sat across from us. James reached for my hand across the table. I pulled mine back. Mrs. Williams has asked me to facilitate this meeting, Michelle began. I'm her attorney, and we're here to discuss some very serious matters regarding family finances and estate planning. Estate planning? Bethany said, her voice sharp. Dorothy, you said on the phone this was about setting up a trust for future grandchildren. I lied, I said calmly. The same way James has been lying to me for almost 2 years. James went white. Mama, I don't know what you— Let me stop you right there, Michelle interrupted. She opened the first folder. Mr. Williams, do you recognize this bank statement? It was his Wells Fargo statement showing the $43,287 balance. James's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. That's what I thought, Michelle said. She spread out more papers. These are statements from your Wells Fargo account showing monthly deposits of $6,500 from Clark Enterprises, your employer, the job you've had since January 2022, the job you told your mother you lost. How did you— Bethany started. How we obtained this information is not the issue, Michelle cut her off. The issue is the systematic theft and fraud that's been perpetrated against my client. She opened another folder. These are Mrs. Williams's bank statements showing unauthorized ATM withdrawals totaling $47,830 over the past 21 months. The number hung in the air like smoke from a gun. $47,830, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. That's how much you stole from me, James. Not borrowed. Stole. Mama, I was going to pay you back. With what? I asked. With the $6,500 a month you've been making at your father-in-law's company, the money you spent on a $140,000 Mercedes, the money you wasted on Louis Vuitton and Gucci and $400 a night hotels. Bethany's head snapped toward James. You bought a Mercedes? What Mercedes? Michelle slid another paper across the table. 2023 Mercedes-Benz G-Class SUV, purchased January 15th, 2023. Monthly payment $2,800. Currently registered to an address at 1547 Piedmont Avenue. That's your parents' address, James said to Bethany, his voice barely a whisper. You bought a car and kept it at my parents' house? Bethany's voice was rising. While you were taking money from your mother? While you told me we were struggling? See, that's the interesting part, Michelle said, clearly enjoying this. You weren't struggling, Mrs. Clark Williams. Your household income was $78,000 base salary plus commission. In 2023 alone, your husband earned $94,500. Combined with the $10,200 he stole from his mother and the $10,200 she paid in rent, your total household resources were $114,900. She paused for effect. The median household income in Atlanta is $77,655. You were living well above average while making your 68-year-old mother-in-law choose between her arthritis medication and feeding you. I watched Bethany's face change as the reality hit her. She looked at James with something like disgust. But here's where it gets really interesting, Michelle continued. She opened a third folder. Mrs. Williams, would you like to share what else we discovered? I took a deep breath. I hired a private investigator, just to follow you for a week, James, to see what you were really doing. James's face went from white to gray. Monday, December 4th, I said, reading from the investigator's report. You left the house at 8:30 a.m. You drove to Clark Enterprises and worked until 5 p.m. Then you drove to 1547 Piedmont Avenue, Bethany's parents' house, where you got into a 2023 Mercedes G-Class and drove to the Piedmont Golf Club. You golfed for 3 hours. Your guest that day was your father-in-law, Dr. Richard Clark. I looked up at him. You told me you couldn't come see me that day because you were job hunting. You were playing golf. Tuesday, December 5th, I continued. You worked all day. Then you drove to the Capitol Grill with Bethany. Your dinner bill was $287. I know because I had the investigator get the receipt. You ordered a $95 steak and a $78 bottle of wine. My voice cracked, but I kept reading. Wednesday, December 6th. You took the day off work. You and Bethany drove to Lenox Square Mall. You spent $1,847 at Saks Fifth Avenue, the same amount as my monthly Social Security check. You spent my entire monthly income on clothes in one afternoon. Bethany had tears running down her face now, but I didn't know if they were from guilt or rage. Thursday, December 7th. You went to work, then you stopped at SunTrust Bank, my bank, at 4:47 p.m. You withdrew $1,500 from my account using the duplicate card you fraudulently obtained 3 months ago. I slid the security footage across the table. That's you, at my bank, stealing from me. James was crying now, his head in his hands. Mama, I'm sick. I have a problem. I'm addicted to spending, to the lifestyle, to... You're addicted to using people. I cut him off. You're addicted to lying. You're addicted to taking the easy way out instead of being a man. Michelle cleared her throat. Mr. Williams, Mrs. Clark Williams, we have documentation of the following crimes. Elder financial abuse under Georgia Code 30-5-8. Theft by taking under Georgia Code 16-8-2. Financial exploitation of an elderly person, which is a felony. Fraud. Forgery in obtaining the duplicate bank card. She let that sink in. The total amount stolen is $47,830. Add the rent payments obtained under false pretenses, $10,200, and we're looking at $58,030 in damages. My client would also be entitled to emotional distress damages, which in cases like this typically run 3 to 5 times the actual damages. That's over $200,000, Bethany whispered. Closer to $250,000, Michelle corrected, plus attorney's fees, court costs, and interest. The room was silent except for James's quiet sobbing. However, Michelle continued, Mrs. T. Williams is willing to offer you an alternative. James looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. That hope made me sick. You have 72 hours until Monday, December 11th at 5 p.m. to return $58,030 to Mrs. Williams's account. Every penny you stole, every penny she paid in rent under your false pretenses. If you do that, she won't file criminal charges. We don't have that kind of money, James said. Yes, you do, I replied. You have $43,287 in your Wells Fargo account. You can sell that Mercedes you're hiding at Bethany's parents' house. That's at least $100,000. You can ask your father-in-law for a loan against your salary. You can sell your furniture, your clothes, everything you bought with stolen money. Mama, please. I'm not finished. My voice was steel now. If you return the money, I won't press charges, but I never want to see you again. You will not contact me. You will not come to my house. You will not call me. You are no longer my son. Mama, no. I raised a son, I shouted, standing up. I raised a good man, a man who loved his mother, who respected women, who understood integrity and honor. I raised a son who would have died before stealing from me. Tears poured down my face. You are not that son. I don't know who you are, but you are not the boy I raised. That boy died somewhere along the way, and this stranger took his place. James was sobbing openly now. Bethany sat frozen, her face unreadable. However, I said, sitting back down, my voice quieter now, if you refuse to return the money, or if you return even $1 less than $58,030, I will file criminal charges. You will be arrested. You will go to trial, and I will testify against you. I looked him in the eyes. I will sit on that witness stand, and I will tell the jury how you came to my house crying, how you begged me for help, how I sold my husband's wedding ring to feed you, and then I will tell them how you spent that money on golf clubs and steaks and designer clothes while I ate rice and eggs. The jury will convict you, Michelle added. Elder abuse cases have a 90% conviction rate in Georgia when there's this much evidence. You'll serve 5 to 10 years in prison. The silence that followed was absolute. Finally, Bethany spoke. Her voice was cold, measured. We'll have the money by Monday. Bethany, James started. Shut up, James. She stood up. We'll liquidate the Wells Fargo account. We'll sell the Mercedes. My father will loan us the rest when I explain what you've done. And then we're getting divorced. She looked at me for the first time with something like respect. I'm sorry, Dorothy. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know what he was doing. I believe you, I said. And I did. She walked out without looking back at James. James sat there, broken, crying. Mama, please. I'll do anything. Just don't cut me out of your life. The money, I said. Monday, 5 p.m. That's all I want from you. I stood up and walked out of that conference room. Michelle followed me. In the hallway, I collapsed against the wall, shaking. You did it, Michelle said, putting her arm around me. You stood up for yourself. It doesn't feel like a victory, I whispered. It will. In time, it will. Monday, I sat in Michelle's office, watching the clock. If the money wasn't in my account by 5 p.m., she would file the criminal complaint. At 4:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from SunTrust Bank. Deposit $58,030. I closed my eyes. It was done. Michelle checked her computer. It's there. Wire transfer from Bethany's account. Not James's? No, hers. Looks like she sold the Mercedes herself, liquidated his account, and got the rest from her father. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. Dorothy, you don't have to cut him off forever. You can leave that door open. No, I said firmly. No, I can't. Because if I leave it open even a crack, he'll push through it. He'll apologize and cry and promise to change. And I'll believe him because I'm his mother. And we'll do this all over again. Okay, Michelle said gently. Okay, 6 months later. I'm sitting on my front porch, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. It's 6:30 a.m. and the street is quiet except for the birds singing in my magnolia tree. My phone is on the table next to me, but I don't check it compulsively anymore. James called 47 times in the first month after the meeting. Then the calls stopped. I heard through Pastor Thompson that he and Bethany did divorce, that James moved into a small apartment near his work, that he's in therapy. I'm glad he's in therapy. I hope it helps him, but I hope it from a distance. I changed my phone number 2 months ago. I changed the locks on my doors. I removed James from my will. Everything goes to my church now, to fund scholarships for young Black students studying textile arts. The investigator I hired, a kind woman named Angela, became a friend. She's teaching me self-defense at the senior center twice a week. I'm learning that strength isn't just physical. It's also knowing when to say no, when to protect yourself, when to stop sacrificing pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. I started writing this story 3 weeks ago. Pastor Thompson suggested I share it, that maybe it could help other mothers, other women who find themselves being bled dry by the people they love most. So here I am, sharing it with you. I'm 68 years old. I lived my whole life being strong for other people, being the safety net, being the solution to everyone else's problems. And you know what I learned? I learned that at 68, you can still learn to put yourself first. You can still learn to set boundaries. You can still learn that love without respect is just another word for being used. I learned that being a mother doesn't mean being a martyr. I learned that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you'd take a bullet for, and that's exactly why they think they can keep hurting you. But most importantly, I learned that it's never too late to save yourself. My son took $58,030 from me, but I took my life back, and that's worth more than any amount of money. 3 weeks ago, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Dear Mama, I'm in therapy 3 times a week. I've been diagnosed with compulsive spending disorder, narcissistic tendencies, and addiction to external validation. None of that excuses what I did. Nothing excuses what I did. I stole from you. I lied to you. I used you. And worst of all, I knew I was doing it. Every single time. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that for the first time in my life, I'm facing who I really am, and I'm ashamed. The therapist asked me why I did it. I told her I don't know. She said I do know, I just don't want to admit it. She's right. I did it because I could. Because you always forgave me. Because no matter what I did, no matter how much I messed up, you were always there to catch me. So I kept falling. On purpose. Because falling was easier than standing. I'm learning to stand now. It's hard. I fall a lot. But there's no one to catch me anymore, so I have to catch myself. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not asking for another chance. I just want you to know that you were right to do what you did. You saved my life by refusing to save me anymore. I hope you're happy, Mama. I hope you're finally living for yourself. I hope one day I become the kind of man you deserve to raise. With love and regret, James. I read that letter 3 times. And then I put it in a box with all the other memories I'm not ready to look at yet. Maybe someday. Maybe in a year or 5 years or 10. Maybe when I know he's truly changed, truly grown into someone different. But not today. Today, I'm going to finish my coffee. I'm going to water my roses. I'm going to meet Angela for our self-defense class. Tonight, I'm having dinner with Denise and some ladies from church. Tomorrow, I might call that lawyer Michelle introduced me to. The one who helps elderly abuse victims tell their stories. She thinks my story could help create new legislation to protect seniors from financial exploitation by family members. Maybe it can. Maybe some other mother will hear my story and find the strength to stop being a safety net and start being a whole person again, because that's what I am now. At 68 years old, for the first time in decades, I'm not someone's mother, someone's ATM, someone's solution. I'm just Dorothy, and Dorothy is enough. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, if you're being used, being drained, being taken advantage of by the people who claim to love you, please hear me. It's not selfish to protect yourself. It's not cruel to set boundaries. It's not unloving to say no. Real love doesn't bleed you dry. Real love doesn't take everything and give nothing back. Real love doesn't use your kindness as a weapon against you. You are worth more than what you can give to other people. You are worth more than your sacrifices. You are worth more than being someone's safety net. And it's never, ever too late to save yourself. My name is Dorothy Williams. I'm 68 years old, and I'm finally free.